The game has only just begun. Radio silence directors Matt Bettinelli-Olpin and Tyler Gillette are back for round 2 with their new horror comedy film, Ready or Not 2, Here I Come. Samara Weaving returns as Grace, the battle-worn and bloody bride, and is joined by stars Katherine Newton, Sarah Michelle Gellar, Sean Hattasey, Nestor Carbonell, David Cronenberg, and Elijah Wood. After Grace marries into a mysterious family and is forced to play a life-or-death game of hide-and-seek, she emerges victorious. But what she didn't know is that by winning, she triggered a whole new twisted battle. This time with her estranged sister Faith at her side, the duo faces a shadowy group of rival devil-worshipping families who control the world, and they must fight to the bloody death for the ultimate prize. 2 times the kills, 2 times the satanic rituals, and 2 times the human combustion. Don't miss the full tilt insanity, Ready or Not 2, Here I Come, when it hits theaters March 20th. Hello, and welcome to Scare You to Sleep. I'm your host, Shelby Novak, and I'm here to tell you some true, terrifying stories. This is a very fun kind of a crossroads between a dark Reddit episode and a true horror episode. Some of you may remember a couple of years ago, I did an episode called Strange, Forgotten Paranormal Encounters, where I read to you several vintage news articles gathered by my friend Rosemary about many different types of paranormal encounters, some of them as early as the 1700s. I absolutely loved that episode and have been wanting to do another, so I hope you enjoy this gathering of vintage articles from newspapers around the globe. The stories range from really odd and strange to bone-chilling, and everything in between. The fun of these is that they were printed in generally well-respected periodicals, so let's jump in headfirst and start with something incredibly strange. This story was printed in several newspapers from the United Press in 1953, but this particular article was titled, Mysterious Batman Seen by 5 Persons in Houston. 5 persons, all of whom lived in the same house, complained to police they saw a combination of Superman and Captain Midnight perched in an oak tree outside their home early Thursday, and said he disappeared in the light of a mysterious rocket and a second aerial display. Police said they were investigating the stories, but admitted they were not equipped to handle such phenomena as the 5 persons described. Mrs. Hilda Walker, 23, accompanied by her husband Lloyd, was the first to report the affair to authorities. She said it was 2:30 a.m., and because it was so hot, her husband, the 14-year-old daughter of the landlady, and herself were all sitting on a porch when the entire yard seemed wrapped in a heavy shadow, settled in a tree. All of a sudden, this shadow settled in a tree, she said. We all looked up and saw a Batman. He was balancing himself on a tree limb, and there was a dim gray light all around him. She said the creature was about 6.5 feet tall, wearing a black cape and skin-tight dark pants, quarter-length boots, and looked like a white man. I could see him plainly and could see he had big wings folded at his shoulders, she said. Walker and young Judy Myers, daughter of Mrs. Vivian Myers, agreed in all respects. Saw mysterious light. They said after the Batman perched in the tree a few moments while they sat paralyzed and watched, A mysterious white flame and smoke shot from behind him, and a burning object like a flying paintbrush scooted across the horizon, and the Batman faded from view. Mrs. Myers said she got home just in time to see the flying paintbrush scoot across the sky, and another roomer, age 71, said he saw the weird shadowy fellow in the tree, though he said he merely went back in and went to bed. The walkers agreed it couldn't have been their imagination, and they said they were so upset they were thinking about returning to Bryan, Texas, from where they moved only 3 months ago. Absolutely incredible. So this mysterious Batman, I love this story. It's so strange. I mean, the description sounds like Batman, the superhero. And what do you think this is? Is it an alien? Is it a cryptid? Was it an actual man just up to some shenanigans? Were they filming a movie nearby? I don't know. I don't think they were filming a movie nearby. I think that would have been mentioned. But super duper strange, and I thought that was a very fun way to start this episode. This next article comes from St. Genevieve, Missouri, on October 23rd, 1877. But this particular article was actually printed in a Scottish newspaper, known then as the Dundee Courier, but I believe it now goes by just the Courier. And this one is about a giant creature. The monster lay in the sand, sunning himself, evidently oblivious to all surroundings. A hasty survey was taken by the party, and it was agreed that it was at least 70 feet in length. The head, as described originally by Egan, was shaped much like that of a dog, but Mr. Erst maintains that it bore greater resemblance to that of the sea lion, though several times larger. The pelican-shaped bill was also observable, and this was estimated to be 5 feet in length, being very sharp and pointed, and having the appearance of an immense horn or tusk for use in offensive warfare. The body was the size of a flour barrel and covered with brown, shiny scales, as large as a human hand. Along the neck was also observed the mane, long and tangled like that of a horse. It had 6 legs on each side, a huge fin or paddle. The tail was long and gradually sloping to the end, which was set off with a spreading fan-like fin. The edges of the tail were indented, so as to give it the semblance of a double-edged saw. So for those of you who have a bit of a tough time visualizing size just based on measurements listed, I wanted to give you an idea of how long 70 feet would be, because that is absolutely bananas. So 70 feet, it would be roughly equivalent to 2 school buses parked end to end. Some of you don't have school buses in your areas, so we'll say, maybe not basketball courts either. It's about 75% of the length of a professional basketball court. And height-wise, that would be about a 6-story residential building. Like, this would be just absolutely massive. I tried to find some other articles about this creature, and I couldn't. This is the one thing that's unfortunate about these very old articles. Sometimes they're genuinely just little blips in time, and periodicals like newspapers weren't meant to be forever. They're ephemera. I have an article in my possession that I was given, and it's not even the front part of the article was what was supposed to be the focus, but I turned it over and it's very delicate. It's falling apart. I can't remember exactly what year it's from. It's very old though. And there's a story about a ghost on the back. And I tried Googling as much of the article as I possibly had, as I had in this little snippet. But because I wanted to find the entire article, of course. I need to find the ghost article, and it is just nowhere. But it's clearly, it was a real article. I have it in my hands, crumbling in my hands. I actually don't even have it framed or anything. I want to find someone to frame the whole thing for me because it's so delicate. And it's just, it was never preserved online. So things that don't get preserved online, just, you can't find anything else about them. And I guess when it came to archiving things, the 70-foot creature from Missouri was just not a priority, was it? Which is strange to me because it would be a priority to me. That's, just a personal preference. I just really wanted to find out what happened to the creature. Did it just disappear? Did it die? Did it... I don't know. I just want to know. I need to know what happened to this creature. If you have any more information on this creature, I should start my own unsolved mysteries on here and ask for the public. I mean, I actually have a few on here that I'm asking the public to help me. There's one later on where Australia, if you're listening, you better perk your ears up because I have some questions for you later. I need your help about a different one because I have a lot of questions. But before we get to that one, do you want to talk about Bigfoot, aka Sasquatch? Because I do. Our next article comes from The Province, a paper out of Vancouver, Canada, and was published on May 4th, 1957. By the way, it's taking everything in me to stop myself from reading every single one of these in a really bad old-timey newspaper man voice. So I'm just letting you know that I'm practicing a lot of restraint right now, and you should be thanking me. Kidnapped by Sasquatch. Snuffbox to the rescue. By Don Laurie, a Province staff writer. This is out of Fort Langley. A Fort Langley man says he was kidnapped and held captive for 1 week by a Sasquatch family and escaped when he fed one a box of snuff. Quick aside, as I'm reading this out loud, I realize some of you may not know what snuff is. It's old-timey. It's like a smokeless tobacco. It's really finely ground, and you snort it or sniff it, and that's why it's called snuff. It's supposed to be like less dangerous than smoking. I feel like to me it feels old-timey. I'm sure people still do it. Maybe do they still? I'm sure they still sell it, but I remember it being like when I was a kid, it was like old-timey even then. And now I guess the other thing would be like, I guess Zyn packs are different. That'd be like chewing tobacco because you put it in your mouth. But anyway, just wanted to explain what snuff is before we move on. Albert Ostman, 64, wow, it gives his full address, you guys, of 10263 McKinnon Road, told his story this week to William Rowe, 66, of 5085 Pacific Highway, Cloverdale. Everybody's did they just print addresses, like your personal address, in the newspaper back then in the 50s? Anyway, sorry to dox him so many years later, but it's in the paper. Mr. Ostman and Mr. Rowe were brought together after Mr. Ostman read of Mr. Rowe's experience in sighting a female Sasquatch, as published in the Province, April 23rd. So this is their second Sasquatch story of the year. Mr. Ostman said he was on a prospecting trip about 75 miles north of the head of Toba Inlet when he was kidnapped during the middle of the night by the old man Sasquatch as he slept in a sleeping bag in the summer of 1924. I didn't know it was the old man Sasquatch at the time, Mr. Ostman said. All I knew is that I was being carried and that the sleeping bag was pulled so tight around my neck that I almost choked. He just slung me over his shoulder and away he went. He was taken to a cave-like shelter under a rock cliff where he saw an old female Sasquatch and a young male and female. The old male was about 7 feet tall and weighed between 500 and 600 pounds. The old lady was slightly smaller, while the young male stood 6 feet and weighed 200 pounds. The young female was about 6 feet tall and 100 pounds. He described them as being completely covered with short hair and wore no clothing. Their food consisted of fruits and nuts and no meat. Mr. Ostman said he was running short of supplies and decided he must escape from the family, although at no time did they molest or harm him. They were definitely human, although primitive, and seemed more curious about me than anything, he said. Every time I would attempt to leave, though, the old man would block the way. But one day I was taking a bit of snuff, and I noticed the old man was very curious, so I handed him the tin. He just opened his mouth and emptied the tin in one gulp, and he was ever sick. While the old man was busy being sick, I grabbed my belongings and ran as fast as I could. I got away okay, and I wasn't harmed a bit. This part gets very outdated and shitty, just FYI. But after living with them a week, I am sure they are merely a band of Indians that have lost touch with civilization. They don't want to harm anyone, and don't want anyone to harm them. My advice to anyone going out hunting for them is just to leave them alone. They probably don't want any part of us, and I don't blame them. Their speech was a sort of chattering, and even though they wore no clothing, they used blankets made of moss woven with strips of cedar bark, and they never used a fire. Mr. Ostman agreed the female Sasquatch cited by Mr. Rowe was quite probably the young female of the family, which held him captive and was now grown up. And yes, of course I hunted down that other article about William Rowe, because we've got to know his story too. So this one, again, this was previously put into the paper. That's what Mr. Ostman saw. This one was titled, Girl Sasquatch Sighted, Hunter Can't Fire. And there is a little cartoon of a female Sasquatch looking like sexy. She's got like a garter on. I'll try to leave links to all these in the show notes because some of these come with pictures. Okay, so this is also by Don Laurie, and this is out of Surrey. A veteran hunter who never heard of the Sasquatch until he read about them in the province drew a bead on one but didn't have the heart to shoot it. It looked almost human, said William Rowe, 66, of, once again his address, 5085 Pacific Highway, Cloverdale. He claims to have sighted what may have been a Sasquatch in October 1955, while he and his wife were living at Tete Jean Cache, about 70 miles west of Jasper. I hope I pronounced that right. Mr. Rowe, who worked part-time on the provincial highways and part-time as a logger, said he was hunting near the old mica mine at the time. I was about the timberline, Mr. Rowe said, when I came to a clearing and noticed some movement in the bush on the opposite side. At first I thought it was a grizzly bear, so I hid behind a clump of brush. Whatever it was had brown and black hair, with the end sort of silvery, like an old grizzly. It was about 75 yards from me, and when it stepped into the clearing, I drew a careful bead on it, just in case. Then I noticed it wasn't a bear, or any other animal for that matter. Whatever it was, and I'm not claiming it was a Sasquatch, it was about 6 feet tall, with a complete, well-proportioned female figure, and must have weighed about 300 pounds. From head to toe, it was covered with fur. It walked absolutely upright, and I couldn't help but notice the strange feet. They were about 18 inches long, narrow on the heel like the average foot, but widened out to about 6 inches at the toes. She walked almost directly towards me, then stopped beside some small shrubs about 10 feet away and squatted down to eat. I remained absolutely still and just watched. Her hands were perfectly formed, except much larger than the average person. The ends of her fingernails were broken and chipped, and they were not claws, they were fingernails. She had a wide, flat nose, shiny black eyes, slightly smaller than a person's, and had a short, thick neck. Her mouth was unusually wide. Her complete body was covered with hair about half an inch long. She backed up and went round some brush, then rounded down towards Rocky Creek. Just before I lost sight of her, she turned her head again and made that strange noise. I honestly don't know what she was, except she was no animal. I'd say she was a cross between a human and a bear. I had my gun aimed right between her eyes 3 times, but I just couldn't shoot. She looked more human than animal, and I would have never felt right about it if I had. Interesting that both these men have described these Sasquatches as more human than animal. Like the other guy, Mr. Rowe, he was very like, these were not animals. These were a type of human. And I've just never really heard them described as that. But this same article with the Mr. Osman, or no, this is Mr. Rowe. Sorry, the last one was Mr. Osman. Mr. Rowe and him not shooting the Sasquatch. How magnanimous of him. There's another article attached to it called Sasquatch Hunt Chief Selected. They decided to do a Sasquatch hunt. Harrison Hot Springs. Renee Dahinden, the Swiss mountain expert, was signed up Monday night to lead the Harrison Centennial Committee's Sasquatch hunt. Dahinden made it clear that the search would not involve an army invading the mountains. He felt the job could be best done by 3 or 4 men. Centennial Committee Chairman Tony Berger said today that the Sasquatch hunt will go on even if Victoria refuses to recognize it as a centennial project. And head hunter Dahinden said, "I would like a party of 4, Mr. Kirkland, a photographer, a scientist, and myself. That doesn't leave any room for women to join the party. Anyway, you have to choose between making it a search or a big joke." His comment seemed to dash the hopes of Juliette Laguerre, shapely blonde and 23, who wrote from Montreal that she would like to join the hunt to further her research on the Sasquatch. The tall model wrote that she is a writer, artist, and singer, and used to rough country. She would be happy to go along as companion to Peggy Sloan of Kirkland Lake, Ontario, who volunteered some time ago, she said. I wonder if Juliette got to go on the Sasquatch hunt. I wonder how the Sasquatch hunt went, why they're hunting them. Why does everybody want to shoot the Sasquatches? So that was a big, long little rabbit hole into these strange Sasquatch encounters. I thought those were interesting. I'm not a big cryptid person. I'm not a big Sasquatch, Bigfoot person, but I thought these were fascinating. Hey, you. Yeah, you. I know I'm always scaring you to sleep, but let me let you in on a little secret. I myself have had trouble sleeping my entire life. I've got all kinds of stuff going on. I'm a light sleeper. I have a bad back, an overactive imagination, anxiety. If you look up bad sleeper in the dictionary, you'll see a picture of me, wide awake, staring at my ceiling, wondering what's going on with the Large Hadron Collider. So, when I heard about Brooklyn bedding, my interest was piqued, and then I spent a few nights on the Titan Plus Elite mattress, and now instead of lying awake with the horrors of the world, I'm wooing hot celebrities in my dreams. I'm waking up refreshed. I'm giving my sleep paralysis demon the middle finger. Brooklyn Bedding knows sleep isn't one size fits all. That's why they offer mattresses for every body, every sleep style, even in hard to find sizes. Sleep hot? I sure do. And now you know more about me. Well, Brooklyn Bedding uses Glaciotex covers, copper-infused foams, and thermoregulation coated foams to help keep you cool and comfortable all night long. Not sure you can take my word for it? I get it. But Brooklyn Bedding has been awarded the best mattress by CNET and best hybrid mattress by Wirecutter, so you know it's the real deal. Brooklyn Bedding also offers a 120-night comfort trial. Love it, or they'll help you return it or swap it hassle-free. Go to brooklynbedding.com and use my promo code SCARE at checkout to get 30% off site-wide. This offer is not available anywhere else. That's brooklynbedding.com and promo code SCARE for 30% off site-wide. Support my show and please let them know I sent you after checkout. That's brooklynbedding.com, promo code SCARE. So, Australia. I mentioned up top I need your help. I shouldn't just refer to you as Australia. My Australian listeners. I love you so much. I can't wait to visit your country someday. I'm very, eager to. Have no plans for it yet, but it's, a huge part of my bucket list. So I beg of you. This next story I have 3 different articles from this story. This is not paranormal. It is true crime. However, it may involve witchcraft, and you'll see why. But you'll see why also at the end of these 3 articles, why I need your help. And I'm pointing at you. So this whole thing happened in February of 1975. This first article is titled Witchcraft Killing? ? Out of Melbourne, Australia, UPI, the naked body of a girl washed ashore on the resort coast of the state of Victoria Monday may have been the victim of a witchcraft sacrificial killing, homicide detectives said today. Although results of an autopsy were not completed, police said it was unlikely she drowned. Police said the girl's left arm had been cut off and that in the fork of a tree 15 miles from where the body was discovered, a school teacher found a 14-inch clay figure of a nude woman with the left arm missing. Police said it could have been the spot where the girl entered the water. It seems macabre. The statuette and woman both have left arms missing, and it's possible this has been a witchcraft sacrificial killing, a detective said. Article number 2. This one is titled Hippie Theory in Girl's Death. Police interviewed dozens of young people between Lorne and Apollo Bay yesterday for clues to the death of a young woman whose body was found floating in the shallows near Kennet River last Sunday. And there's also a police sketch. It says, a police sketch of the dead girl. The dead woman, aged about 26, has not yet been identified. Her left arm had been amputated below the elbow. Police believe it had been amputated several years ago. Homicide Squad detectives believe she may have been involved in a hippie cult. Police are expected today to talk to young people who have set up tent communes along the coast. The chief of the Homicide Squad, Detective Inspector K.P. Walters, said last night, "Nothing is impossible. There have been ritual killings overseas, so we have to keep an open mind. We have certainly not ruled out the possibility that a ritual killing has happened here." A roughly modeled clay doll with the left arm missing, found in bush country 20 kilometers from Kennet River, was examined by Homicide Squad police in Melbourne yesterday. It was found by a teacher in a tree fork on the Deans Marsh Road, 4.4 kilometers from Lorne. Inspector Walters said, "The doll may not have anything to do with it, but with the finding of the statuette, the possibility of witchcraft involved with the woman's death cannot be overlooked. The doll was made from clay molded around sticks to make the figure." Inspector Walters last night renewed his appeal for help in identifying the girl. "We ask anyone who knew a girl with an amputated arm to contact us. It is hard to estimate how long the arm was removed, but we believe it was some time after she was 4 years old," he said. Police said a doctor who has examined her said he was not satisfied the girl had drowned. People at Kennet River said yesterday they had not heard of any witchcraft practiced in the area. People in the area, which has a permanent population of only 4, said the mystery over the body left them with a nasty feeling. And then this same article has a picture of the one-armed statue where it was found in the bush. And it's kind of a rough, since this has clearly been photocopied, it's a little rough to see. But the next article, our third article, has a much better picture of the statuette, and it is, it's a statuette. I'll link all of these in the show notes so you can get an idea of what I'm describing. So this last article is titled Sacrificial Killing Theory to Death. Melbourne, Tuesday. Homicide Squad detectives are investigating a possible witchcraft link in the death of a woman whose naked body was found at the mouth of the Kennet River about 160 kilometers southwest of Melbourne. This follows the discovery yesterday of a 35-centimeter high clay figure of a woman. A school teacher found the figure, which had no left arm, in a tree fork on the Deans Marsh Road, on the Deans Marsh Road, about 20 kilometers from the river mouth. Police say the dead woman's left arm had been amputated 8 centimeters below the elbow. They do not know yet how she died, but the chief of the homicide squad, Detective Inspector K.P. Walters, said, "With the finding of the statuette, the possibility of witchcraft being involved in the woman's death cannot be overlooked, and we are not ruling out the possibility of a sacrificial killing. An autopsy will be held. Police have not identified the woman whose body was found at the mouth of the river on Sunday night." And there's an additional sketch of the woman's face, straight on and in profile. So this is the part where I'm begging for help. If you've ever heard of this case, I was only able to I wanted to find what happened after all of this. If this woman was ever identified, what came of this case. So I could only find one blog claiming to know the follow-up. The problem is, and I'm not trying to besmirch the name of this blog, but in fact they're my only direction I can go in. So I'm not saying anything bad about this blog, but there are no cited sources I could find on this blog, and I could not find a single thing about this case. So I will tell you sort of a gist of what this blog, which is called The Strange Company, and it's strangeco.blogspot.com. Recommend you go visit. It seems like a really cool blog. They've got a bunch of weird, creepy stuff on here. So I'm telling you, please go check them out. They are my only hope. I just don't have any sources as to any of this, and I can't find any links. So this blog says that they did identify the woman. She was 16-year-old Sharon Gay Richardson. Her mother lived in Brisbane and reported her missing in 1972. And this, again, was 1975 when her body was found. So apparently her arm was missing because she was the thalidomide baby. And you can look that up if you so choose. It's a whole different thing I won't get into. Apparently before her death, Sharon and her young son were in the King's Cross area where she worked as a housekeeper. Later, she and the child moved to Melbourne, and this was 3 months before her death. No one knows what happened to the son. The newspapers, according to this blog, reported only that the child recently returned to Sydney, where he was being looked after. Again, I could not find even a newspaper that said any of this. 5 weeks before her death, Sharon and an unidentified man moved into a flat on Beach Road in Sandringham? I'm probably pronouncing that wrong. February 20th, the pair made a hurried exit from their flat, taking all their possessions except a few clothes. February 26th, Sharon's body is discovered. It was in February of 1975. I don't remember if I said that. That's when her body was discovered. And their car was found at Sydney's Mascot Airport. So allegedly then, the case remained cold until 1978. And then Sharon's boyfriend was apprehended. Turns out he was 40-year-old chiropractor Ernest William O'Brien, and he was the one who had been living with Sydney, and he was operating 2 massage parlors. The explanation he gave to police for Sharon's death was that on February 21st, 1975, he found his de facto wife, that's in quotes, so I assume they're quoting Ernest, but I can't be sure, in their flat, dead. She was lying on the bed naked with her legs tied apart by belts. He could think of no better way of dealing with this disagreeable situation than by wrapping the body in a bedspread, putting it in the trunk of his car, surrounding it with 12 bags of ice, quote, because it was a hot day, end quote, and dumping the corpse in the sea. So then they allegedly had a trial. And I'm just saying allegedly because I could not find any of this myself. And the Crown medical experts, in a complete reversal from the initial findings, now stated that Richardson had drowned. Remember in the initial articles, they were like, we think she probably didn't drown. Well, now they're saying she did. The argument that was that During a quarrel, O'Brien knocked Richardson unconscious, thinking he had killed her. He then threw her into the water, where she died. The jury believed them. In February of 1975, O'Brien was found guilty of murder and sentenced to life imprisonment. And this is a quote from the Strange Company blog. As far as I have been able to tell, O'Brien never admitted his guilt. And so it's unclear why he killed his girlfriend. It's unclear if the figurine had anything to do with the case at all. And so that's what I wanted to ask. So I tried to I could not find anything on a Sharon Gay Richardson or an Ernest William O'Brien. Strangely, though, I did look up Ernest William O'Brien and then, I think murder or killing after his name, trying to Google, just terms together to try to find something. And I did find an older article about a different Australian man named O'Brien who murdered his wife in 1939. So I won't get into that one. But I do want to know if you know anything about this case of Sharon Gay Richardson and Ernest William O'Brien and this entire thing. I would love to know if this is accurate, if he's in prison for life, if this is what happened. I would just love to know, because then in the comments of this Strange Company blog, someone said, "Hello, is there a way to contact you privately? I am close to this story, and you know things that I don't, and I wonder if you have some answers to some questions that I have." So then the blog writer said you can privately message me through my blog's Facebook page or Twitter. However, I don't know anything more about this case than what I've written here. So it's strange that this person says they were close to the story, and the blog writer knows things that even they don't know. So I'm really curious. And the blog writer said, "I came across this story while browsing through some old online newspaper archives. Unfortunately, not much was written about the case." So samesies, I came across, but I could only find these 3 articles and nothing about the aftermath of this case. And the reason I'm giving so much of a plea for this one is because it's relatively recent from all the other articles. I think this is the most modern article or event of this entire episode. So again, if you know anything, please let me know. I would really appreciate it. Or if you're just a better researcher than me, which is not hard to do, I'm sure, just if you find anything, I would just be so interested to hear about it. Thank you so much. And our next article is much more fun than the previous one, I promise. And maybe an option I need to look into, honestly. January 15th, 1901, the Sunderland Daily Echo, a woman named Bessie Brown of Cameron, Oklahoma, decided to marry a ghost. The minister went with Bessie last week into the graveyard where her lover was buried, and at midnight the ceremony was performed, which united her to the ghost of the man whom she had promised to marry 2 years ago, but who was killed in a railroad wreck just a few weeks previous to the wedding. I believe, after close study of the girl's actions, that she truly thinks she is wedded to the ghost, and that the apparition appears to her as naturally as if the spirit were still in the body. We are trying to do everything we can to make her forget her ghost, but it seems as if we were going to fail. Before the graveyard wedding, Miss Brown rented a cottage and furnished it for 2. She is now living in it with her ghost husband. She can be seen on the back porch, conversing with an invisible companion, and often walks along the street, talking aloud to some person whom no one else can see. The town people are much excited over the matter. They all know Miss Brown to be a Christian young woman, and one who would not deceive anyone for the world. Most of them actually believe she is married to the ghost of her dead lover. Good for you, Bessie. I think, you know what? Yeah, I bet you were. And I bet this was 1901. I hope you're reunited with your dead lover. And good on those townspeople not treating her like a weird freak. They're like, yeah, girl, get it. Yeah. I just thought that was a really pleasant story. I mean, very sad that her lover died in a railroad wreck? Very sad. But, for all intents and purposes, it seems like a kind of a lovely ending. Here is a fun one out of Grayton Le Marsh, Lincolnshire, in 1869. Extraordinary case. The Times gives the particulars of a death which took place a few days ago from a singular case at Grayton Le Marsh. Deceased was a woman about 30 years of age, and as her medical attendants had been much puzzled as to the nature of her illness, they obtained permission from the relatives to make a post-mortem examination. The result is thus described: a solid tumor composed of human hair, resembling in appearance a black duck with a very long neck, and weighing nearly 2 pounds, was found to occupy and nearly fill the stomach and gullet, forming a tolerable accurate mold of these organs, and extending from the stomach almost into the mouth. This remarkable concretion had caused great thickening and ulceration of the stomach, and was the remote cause of her death. On inquiry, a sister stated that during the last 12 years, she had known the deceased to be in the habit of eating her own hair. The occurrence of a similar case to the above is either so rare or so seldom detected that several medical men of large experience never remember ever having heard of one like it. That, my friends, is now known as a trichobezoar, and it is much more often caught these days, and it goes along with certain psychiatric conditions, and it is awful. It's not as uncommon as you would think to have these conditions, so my heart goes out to anyone who has them, because clearly back then they were completely unaware of this being a thing at all. So there is that, and we have one more article. This was, I was going to say posted. I mean, posted isn't totally incorrect, but printed on January 19th, 1861 in the Preston Chronicle and the Lancashire Advertiser from Preston in Lancashire, England. And this is a great way to go out. A murder revealed by a ghost at Kendal. The Kendal Mercury relates the following strange story. At the high end of Stramongate, in Kitty Gibson's yard, stand some very old buildings, and in one of these, a part of which faces the street, and was, about a century ago, a public house known by the sign of the Black Horse, the following strange occurrences took place a few days ago. There is a cottage at the upper end of this yard, which is occupied by a man named Joseph Allinson, a bobbin turner, and one of the inmates, a young woman of the name of Marian Allen, a sister of Mrs. Allinson, who has been bedridden and nearly blind for some time past, and an object of sympathy on account of her sufferings, is the medium through which the strange story, now in circulation, has been set afloat. It appears that on Monday evening last, whilst some 5 or 6 men and women were sitting by the fireside downstairs, all at once they were considerably alarmed by some heavy sounds, as if someone was knocking violently in a room upstairs. This noise continued for some time. Knock, 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 louder and louder, so much so that the concussion shook the house as if it were about to be brought down altogether. One person stating that the chair in which he was sitting was fairly lifted up. What could be the cause of this fearful noise? It was suggested that perhaps the poor young woman, ill in bed and helpless, might have fallen on the floor and was knocking for assistance. On proceeding to her apartment, she gave forth this curious revelation, which bids fair to emulate the far-famed Cochlan ghost. An apparition had visited her, which she was permitted to behold for a time, and then her eyesight left her as before. The figure of a man dressed in black, of a grim and rough aspect. She describes something breathed in her face, that the lighted candle in the room burned dim, and finally either went out of its own accord, or was extinguished by some unseen hand when the figure appeared as stated. On acquiring sufficient utterance, she inquired of the ghost, in the name of the Holy Trinity, why she was troubled with his presence. On the third time of asking, the spectre spoke in a thick, husky, hollow voice, telling her, whilst pointing in the direction below, to follow him to the cellar of the house, where, on removing the flagstone of the hearth, something would be found buried, which was the special purpose of his visit to reveal. On stating this, the form of the unearthly visitant vanished like a dim shadow. Slowly and silently, the parties in the house went to the locality in the cellar pointed out by the man in black, dug up the hearth flag, and found a quantity of bones, which yet remain for the inspection of the curious, buried a little below the surface. A quantity of hops, in good preservation, were found scattered here and there over the soil. These bones, human they are said to be by some accounted competent judges in such matters, have been examined by scores of people. Their state of decay leads to a supposition that a long, long time has elapsed since they were put beneath the ground. It is to be regretted that the ghost did not reveal more of the secrets of his prison house. It may be he was forbidden to do so. No one can tell. Only that conjecture is rife as the history of these canonized bones. Whether some foul, unnatural murder has been committed of ancient date, long hidden, but now come out under these circumstances, we are not prepared to say. The revelation and discovery, so far, are the foremost topics of remark both in the town and the country, from the latter of which a great number of dealers in the marvelous have been to satisfy themselves as to the truth of what they had heard. I think that story is incredible, and I am jealous of people who get to find things that ghosts point out to them. There was another story like that in some ghost show I watched a long time ago, and the ghost let them know there was a hidden space in the basement, and they went and they did find it, and there was a fake out brick or something, and there was a space there that was clearly for hiding things, but it was empty. And it's oh man, ghost, could you at least have given us a heads up that it was empty? I love this story. I wonder whatever happened to those bones. And it's stuff like this where it's so cool that it was 1861 and they were already considering this ancient, so it's how old were those bones? How old was this ghost? But also, much like, I think it's Catherine Parr, it's one of the Catherines, was found sometime in the 1800s or 1700s, 1800s. They found her tombstone and opened it, and she was in perfect preservation, but she didn't stay that way for long because her tomb was made of lead. So as soon as she hit the air, she started to decompose. And it's one of those stories just like this one where I just oh man, if only they had cameras at the time, if only there was a little more technology, they could have captured a picture. We would have known exactly what that Catherine looked like. Again, which Catherine was it? I want to say no, because Catherine Parr got her head cut off. And the favorite Catherine was buried with him. It wasn't Catherine of Aragon. Maybe it wasn't a Catherine. Maybe it was a different one. Anyway, one of Henry's wives. He had 6, so who knows? Anyway, let's end the episode here. Thank you so much for going on this old-timey journey with me. Please let me know if you'd like more of these vintage true terrors in the future. I'd love to do them. It brings me much joy. So yeah, let me know down below if you liked this episode. If you'd like more of Scare You to Sleep, you can follow me on patreon.com/scareyoutosleep if you'd like some bonus episodes. And you can follow me on social media at Scare You to Sleep or at Shelby B. Novak if you'd like more of my personal stuff. You can find me on the Bloody Disgusting podcast, where, speaking of ghosts, we just had the Hometown Ghost Stories podcast on, and we talked to them about the movie Grave Encounters. So it was like asking real paranormal investigators about the movie Grave Encounters, and it was a blast. It was really fun. We all teased each other a lot, and it was a lot of fun. So go check out that episode. Again, available on YouTube, or it's in podcast form as well. But trying to push people to the YouTube channel. So Bloody Disgusting YouTube channel. You'll see it. And what else? I think that's all for now. If you have any submissions you'd like to send in, scareyoutosleep@gmail.com. Please put in the subject line whether it is a true story or a fictional story. For Baking Corner this week, real quick, I made a yellow cake with chocolate frosting. Classic! No, I didn't use my own recipe because I have never found a yellow cake recipe from scratch that tastes the way a box cake tastes. Yellow cake, I just go with box still. I just do. I've never found an at-home recipe that has that same flavor, you know? So I did make the frosting from scratch though. So there you go. And I believe that's all. Yeah. Go get some sleep. Sweet dreams.